Hello, and welcome to another video by yours truly, Ravioli the Gruyere. We're going to talk some more about the Blue Blood Tinge build today, a really big mechanical deep dive on Blue Blood Tinge, a real roll up your sleeves and put on some rubber gloves because we're about to get way too deep, uncomfortably deep even, into the Blue Blood Tinge build kind of video. Because that's exactly what kind of channel this is, a channel that focuses on efficiency and optimization, all in a game that really rewards it, like Elden Ring. If you're still here after that, well, you have fallen for my ruse. I actually have very little to say about Elden Ring at the moment, other than I'm having fun with it. I'm at ease and at peace with it. Much like that one dude who became immune to rattlesnake poison by microdosing it for years until he could withstand a full dose from the bite of a rattlesnake, I'm at the point where I've consumed enough Elden Ring where I'm now pretty numb to the things I hate about the game and more excited for things that I do like about it. A piece of information I'd like to convey here is that the guy who microdosed rattlesnake poison died of semi-natural causes in his 50s, so do with that information what you will. I'm making this video less because I have earth-shattering epiphanies about Blue Blood Tinge, and more so that I realized I don't have to make a singular video on a new build within the first 2 weeks of making it. I'm allowed to play with it a little bit more and figure out what's even more fun about it, and then I can just make a follow-up video like this. But really, what's driving this is my insatiable desire to make hundreds and hundreds of cents from you guys watching my videos. I'm just raking in those pennies, nickels, dimes, and even quarters. Hell, at some point, I'm going to have enough quarters to put into a roll, close a fist around it, and punch the next person who throws a rot pot at me in the face, shattering their jaw, but also shattering all of the bones in most of my fingers. Anyways, allow me to microdose you with some very lukewarm takes that you probably have already reached independently because you are a semi-functioning human being who plays this game. First one, my friendship is over with the Moonlight Greatsword. Now Helfen's Steeple is my favorite frost-inducing intelligence scaling greatsword. It does a lot of damage at my rune level, which is rune level 80. It does absolutely absurd damage at lower rune levels. I got 3-shot with it by a host at rune level 40. So just to give you an idea of how much damage it can do at lower levels. Do not take the sword to lower levels. None of you can be trusted with this sword at lower levels. Moving on. My second take is I messed around with the spell order a lot and found that yet another perk of the Blue Blood Tinge build is that you can cast Eternal Darkness, which is not quite Vow of Silence from Dark Souls 3, but it is a brief respite from spell hitstun. Well, most spell hitstun. I've also noticed more and more that I actually can kill a lot of overleveled summons with this build. It actually seems possible these days. That might be just me approaching a higher rune level and a little bit better scaling for intelligence builds. But there's some rune levels, like I've been playing a lot at rune level 40 with a different build that I'll make a video on some other time. But at rune level 40, man, certain overleveled summons just are truly unkillable. It seems impossible to put out enough damage to really put them away. But at rune level 80, rune level 90, it seems possible. Oh, the other thing to share is after boldly claiming that nobody has cast Barrier of Gold on me just yet, on a build that does like 90% intelligence damage, somebody did finally cast Barrier of Gold on me, and it promptly ruined my life. I do have one more item on the Elden Ring agenda here, and that is level ranges. Lately, I've been spending a bit more time on the Bad Red Man subreddit, and I'm almost immediately regretting that decision because it's mostly just people complaining about the same problems we've all been complaining about since Elden Ring launched. And like, I get it, and their gripes aren't out of line or unreasonable, but Reddit has got to be one of the worst places to complain because it just devolves into this sniveling spiral of the same complaints getting recycled over and over and over again, and by God, it's just so irritating. But anyways, I was on there and people were, you guessed it, complaining. This time about two things. One, activity at meta is either dead or just ganks. There are no honest co-op groups around at meta. And two, the time to kill is too low. And that was just kind of the funniest thing to me because both of these problems can easily be solved by you, the player character. Simply don't play at meta. Like for point number one, it's just too funny that someone would go to meta level. That's right, the arbitrarily chosen level for PvP, and then complain that there are people there only looking to PvP. That is the point of meta. When I make a meta character in past games, I was never in my life shocked that it was just some bonfire duelist or some dedicated gank. In fact, I was quite frequently surprised when it was anything other than those two. It would be kind of like what are you doing? This is meta level. Why are you co-oping at this level? Like, you're just gonna get invaded by sweat lords like myself. So like, why is this even a complaint? You go to meta for PvP. Don't be surprised when you find hosts who are also there because it's meta. So then, point number 2, the time to kill is too low. And I do agree that the time to kill across the board in this game is too low. But going to a level as high as 125, a level that lets you hit multiple damage soft caps, or 1 damage hard cap, and then complaining that the damage is too high, is really funny to me. Look, I've always been against the 125 as a meta range for all these games. It was especially dumb in a game like Dark Souls 3, where you would naturally end the game at around 80 or 90, and it's still dumb in a game where you naturally end around 150. I'm generally of the opinion that you don't need to hit multiple damage soft caps to make a PvP build. Like, a good build, in my opinion, should have strengths and weaknesses. Like, that is some balance there. But at 125, I feel like the builds are just all strengths and no weaknesses unless you make an intentionally bad build. But beyond that, if you're complaining about damage being too high, simply go to levels where damage isn't absurd, like rune level 80. At 80, you're able to make all kinds of different builds. You can hit 1 damage soft cap with ease. You can have a lot of vigor. You can even have a decent amount of mind and endurance all in one build. Sure, you can't power stance Giant Crushers or cast Ronnie's Dark Moon without making some pretty wild concessions to a build, but like, those are the weaknesses part of strengths and weaknesses that builds should have. I suppose what I'm saying with all of this is that if you're not having a fun time at the rune level you're invading at, give 80 a try. And if you're at 80 and you're not having fun, give another range a try. And if you've tried all of these ranges and still aren't having fun, I'd suggest just playing something else. Because while I'm all about finding new ways to have fun in this game, if you log on to Elden Ring frequently and just aren't enjoying it, it's okay if it's not for you. There are so many good games out there that you could be playing, and there's no obligation to play one you clearly don't like just because you liked the previous game made by the same developer. You don't see me out here playing Fallout 76 just because I love Fallout New Vegas and had a decent time with Fallout 4. It's that same mindset. Why would I do something that makes me unhappy? But I'm also just so goddamn sick and tired of having discussions about this game when there are large swaths of the invader community who won't shut up about Dark Souls 3. A game, I should remind you, that we complained about incessantly while we were playing it. I see so many takes saying, oh, if only they did a complete overhaul of this system, or what if they outright removed certain attacks from this game? And you know what? I don't think this game is getting a major PvP overhaul in Shadow of the Erdtree, so why are people still talking like it will? Honestly, the best case scenario that this particular train of thought can hope for is that right now there is a new Souls-like in its early stages of development. Because right now the schedule is looking like Armored Core in late August, then a completely unannounced date for Shadow of the Erdtree sometime this year, maybe, and then after that, we have no idea. We have no idea if they're coming back to Souls-likes at all. I mean, they probably will because it's what FromSoft is known for, and it's a whole genre that they pioneered at this point, but we simply can't say for certain. Will there be something fun to do with PvP in Shadow of the Erdtree? Probably. Dark Souls 3 gave us Spears of the Church fight after all, and we know FromSoft loves to stash all of those good PvP weapons in the DLC. But what I'm trying to say with all of this is that if you aren't enjoying Elden Ring, you don't have to play it all the time, or play it in the same way you did for Dark Souls 3. Because I really don't think this game will end up ever really feeling like Dark Souls 3, or the Dark Souls 3 we knew and loved, but also kinda hated too. I know plenty of people who exclusively play Elden Ring in Taunter's Tongue runs or organized invasion sessions because random invasions can be too frustrating for them. And that's really a great way to partake in this game. I make more time to make sure that I can participate in organized invasions or Taunter's Tongue runs that I know are going on, whereas I really don't make any time or carve out any time for random invasions. If I have some free time, but if I know a group of people are going to all be playing together, I'm going to make time for that. But anyways, I just want to say you're not obligated to do anything you don't find fun in this game. And at a certain point, it's best to stick to only what you do find fun, because it's just a game. Which for me is still mid-level invasions, but I know that's not the case for everyone. I guess I'm not so much of an Elden Ring defender because some of the flaws in this game really are indefensible, but I've more so adopted a begrudgingly accept this game or move on already kind of attitude. Many of the game's flaws are here to stay, and while I'm holding out hope for, a downscaling rebalancing, or an overall nerf to bleed or poise, I really don't think any of that is gonna pan out, and I think what we have now is relatively the same as what we're gonna have until the next Souls-like game with PvP comes out, whenever that might be. So that is all the Elden Ring I care to talk about for now. Let's move on to some other inane ramblings that you certainly didn't ask for. I haven't made a video in a while because I've been traveling a lot, and while traveling I played through quite a few games on my Steam Deck, and I'd like to share my thoughts on those. First off, the sheer amount of open world games being made right now, and that have been made in the past 5 years, kind of boggles my mind, and not in a good way. Open world games can be quite fun and provide a unique sense of adventure, but they're also quite difficult to design, build, and properly QA. I would know, I've worked on one. But that's where my confusion stems from on this. Why are there so many open world indie games? I understand these titan-sized companies like Ubisoft and Rockstar making these gigantic simulations of a world. I believe somewhere in the ballpark of 2,000 people worked on Red Dead Redemption 2, and Ubisoft recently announced that they'll be increasing their 1,000-person Assassin's Creed team by 40%. And of course, all of these projects take about 4 to 6 years each to develop. But then we also have these drastically smaller teams trying to also capture some of the same feelings of exploring that open world. 3 of the most recent indie games I've played have been open world, and I'd say only one of them really delivered on creating an interesting world to explore that felt entirely necessary. That, of course, was Dredge, whose core mechanic was sailing around searching for fishing spots in an ocean, where you'd frequently stumble on something not of this world. And that makes perfect sense for Dredge. Sailing around on the ocean is quite enjoyable. It's why old rich people buy sailboats and yachts. It is a known fact. I guess my overall point with my ponderings on open worlds here is that simply procedurally generating a landscape and then dropping individual levels into it doesn't necessarily create a sense of adventure just because you have to lug your character between points of interest instead of waiting out a loading screen. I'm trying to ask the question of, what's the point of your open world to a lot of these games? Ubisoft's Assassin's Creeds and Rockstar's Red Dead's aspire to recreate a time period that is no longer present. That is their goal, and I think they're extremely successful at it, even if you don't think those games are fun at all. And other good indie open world games typically succeed because they make their core mechanic traversal. Like, the simple act of moving throughout the world feels really good and is a game within itself. The Pathless is definitely one of the games that does this the best, and its open world feels very deliberate and necessary. The game simply wouldn't work if it was anything other than open world, and I think that necessity and joyous traversal is exactly what makes that game work. This, of course, brings us to Elden Ring, a game that I'm still trying to figure out why it actually is open world. Like, what purpose does it really serve? I guess the more I dig into the why of it, the more I find myself questioning how it all fits together, since riding around on a horse isn't exactly the gold standard for engaging gameplay, and it's not like the horse combat is anything spectacular in this game compared to other games with horse combat as well. I'm currently putting together a much larger script for my critique of Elden Ring's multiplayer, and I don't just mean PvP, I mean like the entire multiplayer online portion of the game. And I guess my greatest criticism at the moment is that the open world simply isn't that fun to explore with other people in it, whether they be co-opers or invaders. So I suppose stay tuned for that video, but in the distant future. I'm still working on the script. I have a lot of the footage for it, but I still need to really write out and finalize that script, because I want it to be a really well thought out video with a lot of care put into it. Unlike this one, which is kind of thrown together. I've just been throwing more shit into the script until it's just getting to the point where, I don't know, this video is going to end up at 14, 15 minutes? Who is to say? I'm still rambling. Let's go. On the polar opposite end of the spectrum here, I also played through Stray, which many of you might know as emotional cat game published by Annapurna. And I'm just ultra puzzled as to how this got really great reviews. The only thing this game really has going for it is a pleasant art style and a cat. The story really doesn't draw me in at all, and I see no reason why the main character had to be a cat. The story could easily be progressed by a possum, or a raccoon, or a robotic crab of some sort. and I have been underwhelmed by these cat animations. Maybe it's because I actually have a cat now, and a previous catless version of myself would have been able to let Stray's extremely mediocre cat protagonist fill the cat-sized hole in my heart. But alas, no longer. Now I am but a frigid and emotionless puppet master when I manipulate the cat to do all of the strenuous activities that Stray asks me to do, like jump onto a ledge, and jump down from a ledge, and jump onto a ledge again, and occasionally run fast. Anyways, this has been your usual Rofo spiel about indie games, which I am once again begging you to play. Next on my backlog to play is a cute little game called Spiritfarer, a Souls-like game called Ashen, and Signalis, which I've heard exclusively wonderful things about. I'm also working on another video that actually focuses on a real build. It isn't just, 15 to 20 minutes of incoherent rambling. So I'm hoping to get that video done as soon as humanly possible. But for now, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yeah, later, loser.